Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Noah Mikhail. I'm going to be building a stock portfolio visualizer in today's video, only using Python, no APIs. I want to get right into it. Let's start coding. So the first thing we're going to have to do obviously is do some imports. So we're going to be importing date time, which is going to be important because if we want to get the value of a stock and calculate it, we need to understand what date we're looking at. So that's a really important library that I'm going to be using a little bit later. We're also going to be using yfinance. And this is the main driver of our program. yfinance is going to be able to determine the price of a stock at any given time. The last library we're going to be using, believe it or not, we're only using 3 libraries, is Plotly. And I found this a really useful library that I've been using in the past couple of days. Let me just change this here. And I've really enjoyed it. It helps visualize and graph objects really, really easily. So let's get right into the code. So make sure you have these installed. You can use Terminal to install these. As you can see previously, I've installed all of these libraries, so no worries for me. If you're using PyCharm, you can simply go to the terminal and install these pretty easily. Guys, feel free to slow down the video, speed it up, go between timestamps, go at your own pace. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is understand what the current time is. As I stated important, this is extremely crucial to understand what the values of our stocks are. We need to understand what the time is. So very simply, we're going to write current time equals datetime.datetime.now. Redundant, but simple. Now we know what the time is. We need to create 2 lists. One of the total stock values, so the values of the stocks multiplied by the shares, and I'll get into that in a moment, and the names of the stocks. So we can plot the names of the stocks on a nice pie chart like this one, and that's the final product. So the first list we're going to make is called total stock values. And the second list we're going to make, as I stated before, is called stock names. Okay, so these are the 2 lists that we're going to make, and we're going to be using them in a moment. So we'll create our class, and we'll just call it stock portfolio, very simply. This is not a sophisticated class, and I will acknowledge several times that I didn't write this very efficiently. This is very user-friendly, so you guys understand, how to build something like this, how to build a pie chart and visualize kind of things in Python. This is very much a beginner's tutorial. So we're going to be making a lot of functions, and the first function that we need to make is actually getting the stock value, and therefore we will call our function getStockValue. Okay, now the only thing we need as an input here is the interval. And what does that mean? So our interval is how often we're looking at the stock price. So if we're getting one value for the stock price, we want a pretty recent interval. We want to know the stock price within a 15-minute interval. So I prefer 15 minutes. You can also do 5 minutes, 1 minute, but 15 minutes is good enough for me. So we have a way to understand how we're going to, the interval of when we're going to get the stock value, but how do we actually get the stock value, and how do we know how many stocks the user has? So we have to create a variable called global num stocks. And what we're going to do here is ask the user with this variable, hey, how many stocks do you have? Okay. And the user is going to tell us how many stocks they have. Now, what we're going to say is for I in range, the number of stocks. So if it was 3 stocks, for I in range 3, stock name equals input. We want to know what the name of each stock is. So we're going to say stock symbol. What is the name of your stock? Okay, so we want to know the name, and then we want to append it to our list of stock names. So we'll simply say stock names.append, and then we'll append stock name, quite simply. So that's pretty easy, right? So far what we've done is we've asked how many stocks the user has, and for every stock the user has, we want to know what the symbol is, and we'll add every symbol to a list. So now we have a list of all the stocks the user has. Great. Now we want to know the value of every stock. How do we do this? Okay. Remember, everything is going to be under this for loop because we're doing this for every individual stock. And if it's one stock, then it will run once, twice, for 2 stocks, 3, and so on. Okay, so now here comes YF Finance, what I was using before, this library that we declared. Make sure you have this downloaded and take this coding tutorial at your own pace. If you want to speed up, if you want to slow it down, feel free. Okay, so we're going to create a variable data, and we're going to say yf.download. And what this is going to do is going to get all the data of our specific stock symbol and give it to us. And we can use this data and manipulate it in many ways, but for our purposes, we only want to know the stock value. So what we're going to do is we're going to say tickers equals, and ticker is another way of saying the stock name. So we're going to assign it to the stock name. We're going to say the period is equal to a day because we're looking at today's value, not yesterday's value or the day before or last week's. And then the interval in which we're looking at our stock is interval. And we define interval as equal to 15 minutes. Okay. We want to know what the now value of our stock is, what the value is right now at this split moment. I'm recording this on a Sunday, so the market is not open. But if it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, excluding holidays, we could get a split second number of what the stock value is. Okay. So we would create a variable called now value and equate that to data. But data is just a bunch of rows and columns that tells us the opening value every day, the closing value, the volume, all these different metrics that we don't need to look at. We're strictly looking at what the now value is. So we'll be looking at the open column for today. And then we want to look at the last value for the open column, the latest value for the open column, the today's value for the open column. And the way we look at the last value of a list is using -1. So let's say you had a list of 8 numbers, a length of 8. The seventh indice of that list would be the last number. But we don't know how long this list is. Okay, we don't know how much data we're getting. We want to know what the last number is. We don't know the length, so we use -1. Okay. Now, we want to know how many shares of this stock the user has. Maybe they have 1 share, maybe they're rich and they have 1 million shares. Okay, so we'll say, how many shares do you have? And obviously, feel free to change the input. This is just what I'm saying, but you can change this input to whatever you want. Okay, so we ask, how many shares do you have? Now, to calculate the total value of this stock, we need to multiply the number of shares by the now value, and we'll do exactly that. We'll say total val equals now value multiplied by num shares. But we run into an issue. Num shares is not a float, and now value is, and that becomes problematic. We want to multiply two things that are the same data type. So we convert num shares to a float. And therefore, we do not run into any problems. Okay, we have the total value. Great. This total value is going to come out as a really, 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 really long decimal. And we don't want a really long decimal. We want something with 2, 3 numbers after the decimal point. How do we achieve this? We use string formatting, which is not really self-explanatory and requires more research. I can honestly admit that I don't understand too much about this. I've just picked this up after doing, hours and hours of coding. So we're going to re-equate total value to float using float, and then this is how we would format it to have two decimals after decimal point. They do %.2f, and then after space percentage or modulus, and then total val. And this is how we format total val to be a number that is the total value of our stocks, the number of shares multiplied by the now value, and something that has 2 decimal points after decimal point. Okay, cool. Now we're going to take this total value and append it to total stock values. How do we do this? By simply saying total stock values, our list.append total val. There we go. Okay, so we're basically done. I just want to see what the total values are, so I'm going to actually print this out. So I'm going to say value. I can make this longer, but for the sake of saving time and for our patients, both of our mutual patients, I'm going to keep this short. So value of this stock, we'll say value of X stock is, space is, and then we want to know the now value. So we're going to say string now value. Boom. Okay, fine. So the value of X stock is X or Y value. Okay. Now we want to know the total value of the stock. Num shares multiplied by the now value. So we're going to say total value of shares. And then all we need to do is do string total val. And that is about it. Oh, gotta change that into a plus. String total val. Okay, so the bulk of our code, the skeleton, is here. All right, at this point, we've done most of the math. All right, we've calculated, we know the number of shares, we know the total value of those shares, we've condensed that into something that's readable, and we've taken that condensed readable number and added it to a list that we can access outside of this function. Fine. Okay. Now, what we need to do is visualize this, because at the end of the day, the goal here is to visualize this, these numbers in a nice pie chart, so we know how our portfolio is distributed, how we're investing in different stocks, and what percentage of each stock is dominating our portfolio, how we're diversifying, basically. So here comes in a really important part, and this is actually visualizing what we're doing. So we create another function called create pie chart. Pretty self-explanatory, and we don't require any inputs. And this is where, we don't require this, we don't need self. And this is where Plotly comes in. And you're going to see how simple this is, and you can definitely do more research about how Plotly works. I was spending hours just looking on how it works. It really excites me. So I'm going to get right into it. So pie charts require two main things: labels and values. Labels being what each part of the pie is labeled with. So is it going to be like a Boeing stock? This part of the pie is Boeing stock. This part of the pie is Apple. This part of the pie is Amazon. And then you actually need values to indicate how large Apple is, how large Amazon is, how large Boeing is. Okay. So we're going to create two variables: labels, which will equate to stock names because the labels are just the names of the stock, and values, which we will equate to total stock values. Quite simple. Fine. Now here comes the fun part. We're actually going to create the pie chart. So this is how we do it with Plotly. So we say fig, and that's just what I'm going to name it. You can name it whatever you want. Fig equals go.figure data equals. Now, right now, we're actually creating our pie chart. So just stay with me and I'll explain everything that we're doing in a moment. So we say go pie, create our pie chart, and then we need to define a lot of things. So the first thing that we need to define is, hey, what are the labels going to be? So we'll just say labels equals labels. Pretty straightforward. Next thing that we need to do is define what our values are going to be, and values equals values. Again, straightforward. Text info, this is going to tell us what is actually going to be in the pie chart besides the name of the stock. And we want both the label and the percentage. So we'll say label plus percent. You see how self-explanatory this is? It's quite simple. And it's a lot more simple than Matplotlib, trust me. And the last thing, really the last thing we're going to do is, what is the text orientation inside the pie? And this is, quite, unnecessary. I don't really have to go into this, but it's just radial. Like, what is the orientation of the text? How is it going to be relative to the shape of the pie? So we have our figure, we've defined our figure. Now, a key thing, we want to know how much our portfolio is worth. Okay. To know how much our portfolio is worth, we actually need to iterate through our list of total stock values and add those up together. So how do we do this? We create a variable called sum. Sum equals to 0. For I in range, stay with me here. For I in range, the length of the total stock values. So for I in range, the length of the total stock values, sum plus equals, we're adding to sum, total stock values I. What does this mean? You're probably asking me. So for every element in total stock values, we're going to add that element to sum. So finally, when we want to know the value of our portfolio, we'll just print out sum. Cool. You'll see how cool this is in a moment. Okay. Couple more things to do and we're done. So now we want to create a title. So we'll say fig.update layout. Let me see how many functions you can do. Fig.update layout. So we'll say title text equals, and I want to call mine stock portfolio. We'll add a $sign. So the $sign is actually next to our value. And then what we're going to do is say string and then float, because we want to format this. So I'm going to do the formatting again. I know it sucks. Trust me, it sucks. I hate it. And then sum. Okay, cool. So that's done. We have our title. We have our pie chart. That's fully created. Now, a couple of small things. I just want to print the datetime. So this is how you might want to go about printing datetime. You don't have to. You can totally not do this. I just like to see what the date is, because why not? So it's just year, month, day. So it goes like this: year in capital, month in lowercase, and day in lowercase. Pretty cool. And then I want to know the total stock values, like the value of each stock. Why not? And then I just want to know the names of our stock. This is just like a precautionary method. This is like for error handling. If I see something that is wrong in these lists, then I can go back to the code and figure out, what's wrong overall. And since it's a class, we just have to do this to make sure that everything runs properly. And I understand this is not the efficient and shortest way to run this, but it's under 50 lines and I'm pretty satisfied with it. And I hope you are too, and I hope you had fun. In a minute, we're going to see our final product. I am so excited to show you guys, and hopefully you are too. Let's run both of our methods. Create pie chart. Okay, so we're done. I want to run it, and then we'll do a quick recap, and that will be it. So let's run it. How many stocks do you have? I'm going to say I have 3 stocks. So I'm going to say 3. Okay. First one is Apple, and it doesn't matter if it's lowercase or uppercase. Apple, AAPL. I say 2 shares. It says value of Apple is 139. 2 shares is equal to 279.68. Okay, fine. Next one is Boeing. I actually have Boeing shares. I'm going to say I have 4 shares of Boeing. And the total value, the value of BA is 206. The total value is 826. Great. And the last one is going to be, what should my last one be? What should my last one be? I'm just going to enter a random letter and see what happens. So let's just put E. Okay. That actually worked. Then 1 share of E. So those are our final values for E. So that is our final, total stock values. And then these are our 3 symbols. So to visualize it, here's the moment of truth. What we're going to do is we're going to add in the code figure.show. And now if we run this again, I'm just going to do this process again because I just want to show you how it actually worked. We'll add Apple. I'll say 3 shares. Boeing, I'll say 2 shares. E, I'll say 1 share. And now we're actually going to get our pie chart. How cool is this? So we have each symbol and we have these, BA 48.4%, Apple 49.2%, E 2.45% with these labels. And then we have the total stock value, and it looks like it adds up 413, 419, and 20. And that is the visualization of our stock portfolio. And you can definitely play with this and add colors and work with Plotly. And I'm really satisfied with the end product, and I hope you are too. Make sure to like and subscribe down below. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I really did. I had a lot of fun making it. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week. Peace.